Alright guys, so I'm just going to UV unwrap this face nice and easily using Maya and ZBrush. So we're just going to cut the scenes up in Maya, send it to ZBrush, and then bring it back. Now the other important thing to note about this scene is that there is already a rig on this, and this character already has some skinning and a bit of rigging on the history, so we want to add the UVs back and not have it affect this at all. So there's a few steps to this for those that have already rigged characters. Let's just get started. So the first step I'm going to do is just duplicate this mesh. So ordinarily we can just hit Control D and that will duplicate the mesh and bring it out. So now we should have two meshes. So I'm just going to grab that. We have to unlock this and then we just go unlock selected and we'll have two meshes now. So two meshes in the same place. You can also use this copy IC duplicate skin if you're using my preferences. That does that in one step. Now that we have this face here outside, I've just unparented using Shift P. I'm just going to bring that up by itself by hiding everything else. So we're sort of not really concentrating on much else. That will kill all my lights in viewpoint 2.0, but not to worry. Let's just go back to regular default rendering quality mode. Now we have this face, we want to start to select our seams. Actually, before that, we want to create some UVs, so I'm just going to close this. And under the UV editor, we can bring that up now. It's just straight down, UV texture editor, 9 if you've got my hotkeys. And we're here, and we can see that our object has no UVs. So the next step that we want to do is we want to assign some UVs, and we really don't care how they're going to be assigned, so we're just going to use kind of default settings. So just come across to create UVs, planar mapping. I'm going to come into the options box because I really like to keep things on camera project from camera. So by default will be like this, just put on camera. That's not necessarily, we just need any UVs, but I'm just going to do that and show you how that works so we can see how we've just applied that. Now that we have this, we have some UVs on this character, we want to create our seams and just cut it apart. So what we're going to do is cut all the different bits apart so ZBrush knows where we want our seams. So I'm going to put this in fast forward and do this just quickly, but just before I do that, let's just have a look and see that you can double click on these lines and that sort of like shows them going from point A to point B. We can also click once and then hold down the Shift key, and then you can click to the next sort of line, and that's another way of actually selecting the creases nice and quickly. So I'll just continue this quickly and then we'll move on. Alright, so now that we've got our UVs selected for the first seam line, I'm going to cut that up. So it's very easy, we just come in here to polygons and we go cut UV seams. And that will cut that off, and we can see that by coming up into this move UV shell tool, clicking on that and then clicking and dragging that off, and you can see that we now have two UV shells selected. So the next part of this step is we want to now further this. I'm just going to come in and select faces. And I'm absolutely not sure why this is selecting UVs, so usually you can just select faces like that, but for some reason mine is stuck in selecting UVs, so I'm just going to ignore that and convert that to faces, but usually you should just be able to do that. If you need to get through convert faces in the menu, it's select convert selection to faces. Now that I've got these faces up, it's sort of a handy way of selecting faces. We can now isolate select that, so that's just up here in panels. Sorry, I've forgotten where that is because I have hotkeys to all this stuff view selected, and if you have my hotkeys, that's shift and the backslash up just below the delete key, so we can select that. Now you can see that inside we've got the inside of the face, and we can come across here and now create a new seam so that we can grab that inside of the mouth and cut it off. So I just double clicked on that, and again we can go polygons, cut UVs, and then come in here again with this tool, just click that. Maybe it's because that tool is on, that's why I've got had problems selecting the faces. So just click that off, and maybe then we can select faces. I'm just going to try this quickly. There you go. So just while you're in that tool, you have to be in UV mode. So now we've broken those two apart. There we go. And we now want to cut off the ears. as well, because the ears are quite tricky and it's good to sort of flatten them by themselves. So let's do that. And I'm just going to cut the UVs now, so let's do that again. Back to the edge tool, and we can see that we have that in parts now. And the very last step is just to like grab this guy here, the main shell. So let's bring everything back, and this time just select this guy. We can convert into faces. Now we can show him by himself, and we just need to be able to unwrap this a bit like a cylinder. So we need a seam. We can put it down the back of the head. It's a bit shorter in the front, so I'm going to choose that one. Just here by double clicking on that line. Now that we've got that, I'm going to bring everything back because I know that it selects all through there. So let's just bring that back here. Make sure I've got nothing selected in there, which looks pretty good. And now I'm just going to cut that again. So let's go polygons, cut UV edges. So this is a little bit hard to tell, so what I'm going to do is show you why we're using ZBrush or headers to unwrap our objects, because by default it's kind of unfortunate, but we can actually unwrap some of this stuff here in Maya, but it does a really terrible job, unfortunately. So I'm just going to go to the unfold tool. I'm just going to use the default settings, but there's really not much we can do about this. We hit apply and unwrap this head, and as you can see, it's just a little bit like all over the place. It's not symmetrical, and a few other things, and especially when we get into more difficult areas like this face, it just can get trickier and trickier. So all we need to do at this stage is just bring all of our objects and just make sure they are on the UV canvas, and we are ready to rock to go into ZBrush. So I'll show you that step next. And just before I finish up, one last thing that I've forgotten here is let's just select the faces of this mouth here, and again we're going to select that and come in here. Now this has to be unwrapped with another seam to just help it out a bit, so I just forgot that. Select one of these middle seams here, come on Maya, select my seams, there we go, and then back here double click and we have a seam through that object, there we go. Not all the way, we just want to get it to the back somewhere there so it can sort of unfold and wrap out. So again, now we go cut UVs, edges, and just to show that that's worked, I am going to unfold that too. You can sort of see that starting to unfold, but of course Maya is not doing a good job, and that is why we're going to be using ZBrush.